One of the Ninja Turtles of the Renaissance, Mr. Michelangelo, a true prodigy. He did have like a form of training, and he did have the Medici family basically helped pay for his training, but to a large extent, he was a prodigy from as a kid. He was able to do his artistic stuff his whole life. So I'm going to take a look at his influence, and it's just astounding to look at what this guy did. It really is. And he paints the Sistine Chapel and doesn't even consider himself a painter. He considers himself primarily a sculptor. Just a little side project. So we'll be moving on to his sculptures, and then move on to the Sistine Chapel. When he was 16 years old, just going to show you what he was doing as a kid. When he was 16, he made this engraving here of Mary feeding Jesus called Madonna of the Stairs. Madonna referring to the Mother Mary. Pretty nuts. When he was 17, going in a very Renaissance style, moving from a biblical theme to a classical story, the Battle of Centaurs, and he made this at the age of 17. Just a close up here of it showing the twisting of this man, and being able to create this is truly astounding. Arguably one of the most famous statues of the world. I would say a little bit below David in terms of people could recognize it. But it's definitely up there, is Pieta. And Pieta means pity, right? Something's pitiful, it's very sad. It takes this, the saddest thing that can really happen to a parent, if you've ever heard before, is, losing their own child, and the struggle that goes along with that. Now let's take that storyline, and put it with, the ultimate mother losing her child. That's Mother Mary losing her son Jesus. Now, Pieta's famous for a bunch of reasons. It's in the Vatican today. You could go see it. One thing that it's just famous for is the story there, the story behind it. And that Michelangelo was so able to go and encapsulate the moment of Jesus being, taken down from the cross, and his lifeless body being, carried by his mother, holding him in his lap, and being able, no one could really ever recreate this limp figure before. The dead almost looked too stiff, but the weight of Jesus, Michelangelo was able to make. By the way, all this stuff he did before basically he was like 30 years old, most of these main works. It's pretty crazy. And the extent, when he did this Pieta, he wanted the credit, so he actually carved his name into the sculpture. He never did this again with any of his sculptures because he felt actually kind of prideful for doing it. One thing to keep in mind, if you do the math here, right? Jesus, just say he's 33 when he dies. Mary, say she was 14 when she had him. This should be a 47-year-old woman holding her son. This does not look like a 47-year-old woman. She looks a lot younger. So the connection here to the young Mary, Michelangelo was very intentional in this, and he basically said because Jesus was conceived through a virgin birth, that she kept her youthful beauty her whole life. So it was intentional, kind of this Mary-style worship and ongoing, and she's not tainted by the flesh. Another just look at a sculpture of Jesus dying on the cross that Michelangelo did, and just keep in mind, right, in the Greco-Roman tradition, and probably more realistic to history than what actually happened, but somewhat more offensive to some people, is that Jesus is nailed naked to the cross, and a lot of churches even cover that up because it could be considered offensive to some extent. Now moving on to David, the most famous sculpture in the world. The David, instead of being in Rome, is actually in Florence. It was originally outside, but it's actually inside. There's a replica outside. It's 17 feet tall. And some people don't realize this, but David is David and Goliath. It's supposed to be David right before he's taking on Goliath the giant. And you can see he's actually holding the slingshot that he's going to use to go throw the stones that Goliath has and then go chop it off. Now, if you know the story, David's a kid. So he's obviously taken some artistic liberty here and really personified David as this strong, Greco-Roman figure. Because he's not a boy, he's a boy in the Bible. So this is clearly not historical in that sense. And he wasn't naked either. But the idea is that he's going and creating this Greco-Roman ideal. Now, Florence and Rome weren't getting along at the time. So David actually faced the city of Rome, which was their enemy, their version of Goliath. David is standing in this contrapposto pose, which is very typical for this type of sculpture. You've probably seen it before, is where he puts more weight. You can see all the weight here's on this leg, and this one's kind of off to the side. That pose is called the contrapposto pose. Also, too, one aspect of David is that his right hand is actually larger in proportion of his body, and that's intentional. That's supposed to represent the hand of God, that God's hand was behind the slaying of Goliath. And moving on to his painting now, like I said, he's considered just a little side hobby. The Sistine Chapel, which is inside the Vatican in Rome. Now, it's not the 16th chapel, people also want to say that. But the ceiling at the Sistine Chapel is very famous for its bright use of colors. It took him 4 years to complete. The story traditionally goes that he laid on his back on scaffolding and painted the ceiling. And it's the Bible for the illiterate, but it's also for the somebody that appreciates art as well. On the ceiling, there's a bunch of stuff going on, as you'll see. But part on the ceiling, there's three main parts. There's the story. It's basically from Genesis, the story of creation, then Adam and Eve, and then Noah. It's painted as a fresco, so it's painted directly onto the plaster. And then here are the different parts to it, and I'll be showing you a picture. The most famous one here is the creation of Adam. That one's been parodied. You'll see, you could Google a bunch of parodies. Some of them are kind of funny. But here, we'll take a look at there, and then we'll take at the Last Judgment, which is it's not part of the ceiling, but it's part of the Sistine Chapel. So here we go. So we're going to be taking a look at the ceiling here, and then we're going to go to the back, and we'll take a look at the Last Judgment. And you could probably spend hours analyzing each of these things, but it's an incredible artistic feat. And another view as well. On the side, people sometimes ask, these are other biblical prophets. Some of them you have heard of, some of them you haven't. So let's get started. The Genesis stuff. God is actually personified here, dividing the light from the darkness. God creating the sun and the planets, and God dividing land from the water. Like I said, this is the most famous one, is God reaching out and creating Adam, and you can see God again personified and the angels around him as well. As the story goes, Eve is created from the rib of Adam when he's put to sleep, and there's God actually telling Eve to rise. This one's also fairly famous as well. Probably not as famous as the creation of Adam, but it's up there. Is the fall. Here's Eve taking the forbidden fruit from Satan and the expulsion from the Garden of Eden as they're kicked out. Then we move on to Noah. There's three of them for Noah. The first one is known as family making a sacrifice. The second is the famous story of Noah's Ark. You can see the ark out here. And the third is the story of Noah's drunkenness. Now, the ending part of the Sistine Chapel is the Last Judgment. And it refers to the second coming of Christ, the apocalypse, Armageddon, whatever you want to call it, the point at which people are judged. And people are either sent up to heaven, yay, or down to hell, oh no. And what this goes and encapsulates the moment that Jesus, who looks actually quite strong and powerful, not exactly the I love you Jesus, is judging people, and they're going to either be in heaven or hell. Now, he went and put certain saints and even painted people he didn't like in hell. So the story goes. But what he did is, you could tell the different saints. I'll show you here. And like I said, Jesus is powerful in this. And it's almost meant to kind of scare you to some extent. Almost a medieval, not style in the way it's painted, but in the message to a degree. And another place as well. So your demons going and grabbing people. St. Bartholomew, you can tell it's Bartholomew because he was skinned, so sometimes you can tell the martyrs by the way they're dressed. And the moment that this guy just realized that he is damned to hell and these demons are bringing him there. So we'll end it on that very, very uplifting note of the Last Judgment. Well, it could be uplifting, I guess, if you're going to heaven, but for this guy, it's not turning out so well. And the Sistine Chapel. All those things are just incredibly important to the canon of Western art and just understanding the importance of Renaissance art to both Christianity and just the art world in general.